Hello, good afternoon. Today's section, we will begin with Rebecca Rumble, Executive Director and CEO of Rust Foundation. She will be talking about developing a strategy for success in open source. Please welcome her.
Hey everyone. Right, well the technology works for now. We'll see how it goes. It's great to be here in Bangkok. Good to see you all. I hope none of you had torturous journeys because of the nonsense going on in the Middle East. I had some flight changing fun myself, but I got here. That's the main thing. So yeah, I'm Beck Rumble. I'm from the Rust Foundation. Anyone here heard of the Rust programming language? Yay! Okay, right, good. So we don't have to start there. Perfect. Well, so the foundation is only like 5 years old. We're still pretty young. The Rust language is still pretty young. We just celebrated our 10th birthday last year. As a foundation, I'm sure a lot of you, understand with open source, a lot of projects, go to live at foundations so that they can get good support, so that they can be kind of better fundraised, better resourced, all these kind of good things. So obviously, as the steward, the official steward for the Rust programming language, it's our job to make sure that, we provide all of that good support, that we provide support for the package repository system, crates.io. And, we want to do all of this good stuff to make sure that everything is kind of sustainable. So this is both a pain and a privilege. It's a huge privilege being the organization that stewards the Rust programming language because it's really cool and it's really good. And it's going to do a lot of good stuff in the world. But keeping the wheels on the bus is no easy task. Again, the whole internet, you all have heard this, everything in open source, it's free as in puppy, not free as in beer. Like, there's a responsibility and an obligation to take care of the things that are free. And, keeping the wheels on the bus is pretty hard and it's pretty expensive. We've got infrastructure, crates.io, we've got core engineering that needs to be done. We've got to wheedle money and free stuff out of companies that make billions off of products built in Rust. We're responsible for compliance and legal regulations, financial regulations. The powers that be have finally cottoned on to open source and the fact that it's a thing and maybe we should be regulating it. The Cyber Resilience Act in Europe's coming down the line. That's something that we need to think about. And we also want to make sure that our maintainers are well supported, healthy, that there is well-being, that they're empowered, and that, that takes money too. But I think most importantly, as the official stewards, we're responsible for ensuring that in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time, people still want to use Rust, that Rust is still useful and productive for people that want to build in it. There has to be a language left for us to support. And if people are not using Rust in 5 years or 10 years, that means I have done a terrible job as the CEO. So we worry about all of these things. How do we do these things? Well, we need to kind of plan for this. This doesn't kind of fall out of the sky. We need to kind of figure out exactly, right, we need these resources to support X. We need these resources to support Y. We have internal and external pressures. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about strategy today is because a lot of people don't really think about the stuff that goes on behind crates.io or other package registries. They don't really think about the stuff that goes on behind actually getting a language to the point where you can use it productively. So in terms of obviously internal pressures, we have to be fiscally prudent. We can't just splash the cash. We have to make it go as far as possible in the most impactful way. We do need to have staff. It's very, very difficult to run a foundation with only volunteers. It can be done. Other foundations have done it very admirably, but I'm sure they'll all tell you if they could afford someone to do the paperwork, do the bureaucracy, they would take it. We need to keep up community relations. Again, these things just don't happen on their own. They need moderation, they need support. They need various other things to make sure that they can keep going. We want to facilitate connections and collaboration and events. These things cost money. And we've also got members, people, well, organizations join the foundation with the assumption that they're going to have an influence on how the language grows and how it's supported. And member organizations who are paying us sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars quite rightly expect something in return. So we need to be very responsive to them. On the external side, domestic and international policy is increasingly finding its way into influencing open source. You know, I mentioned the CRA in Europe, but countries all around the world are looking at open source and figuring out whether they need to actually kind of get in and start regulating there, especially in the wake of, you know, a few years of pretty bad supply chain attacks. There is an insecurity of financial support, not just for us, but for the people that fund us as well. You know, even the big tech companies, they only do a budget every once a year. At the end of that year, it's entirely possible that they think, do you know what, we're feeling the pinch a little bit here. We're just going to defund the Rust Foundation. That's always a very real possibility. Technical and cultural shifts happen. You know, technology and the way we talk about it and the way we approach it is not the same today as it was 5 years ago, and it will not be the same even in, well, 6 months or a year from now. And this kind of feeds into a lot of corporate pivots that I'm sure some of you, well, I'm sure most of you here can imagine some of the corporate pivots that I'm talking about here. So in terms of building a strategy, you know, it's not for me to say this is what we're going to do. I am the boss of the Rust Foundation, therefore I know what's best. I don't know what's best. I have some ideas, but this is open source. I want the community, I want the people who use Rust and value it to tell me what they think is important as well, because there's no point in having a strategy if it doesn't actually represent what people want. So we went out to consult with people, we asked some key questions, you know, where do we want to be in 3 years? How do we want people to see us? What can we do to get from where we are to that place where we want to be? You know, what are the steps we need to take? What are the activities we need to do? What factors will affect this direction of travel? You know, what out there could potentially derail this? And, you know, one of the really hard questions, I think, for people in open source is what's critical and what's not. Everyone wants to feel like their kind of favored pet project is the most important thing in the world, but sometimes that particular project may be not as critical to a kind of overall direction of travel as something else. So that's quite a painful question, but we wanted to ask it because we wanted to get an understanding of what the community were thinking. And unfortunately, when you ask people big questions about what they want, you quite often get like a Dear Santa wish list. I want a pony and an Xbox, none of which really tells you what you actually, you know, where you want to get to, what specific things you want to do. You just get lots of like, I really want this shiny thing. So we have to filter some of that out. So we sift contributions. There are ones that are, you know, not so helpful, like nice to have, but not necessary, wildly expensive, you know, kind of pie in the sky kind of things. These are useful to know because it is useful to know what people, you know, what people's hearts desire. And to try and kind of move it over into the helpful category, that, you know, these things have tangible benefit. There is an obvious direction of travel. It would have some transformative impact. It's resource appropriate. So we kind of filtered everything out, and we kind of had a vision that emerged that we have our strategy online. You can see it on our website, but it kind of centers around these pillars. This is kind of what came out of the strategy consultation, that people want stable infrastructure. That's like absolutely foundational. We can't do anything without the infrastructure that underpins everything that we do. We need sustainable maintenance. I think in an open source conference, everyone here knows the pain of being a maintainer, especially one that isn't paid to do the maintenance of something really important that a bunch of companies make profit off of using. We are trying to fix this problem. We want to make sure that Rust is adopted, that it's at the edge of innovation, because only by that will we know that Rust has a good future. We need to maximize the membership. We need to make sure that the people, the organizations that are members are contributing, and we need to grow that membership to make sure that we can still fund sustainable maintenance and all these other things. And we need to empower the community to meet, to collaborate, and to do what they do best. So that vision emerged. Underneath there, we did some more consultation, and we set out these kind of key tasks. These are the tasks that hopefully will get us from where we are, or where we were, to where we're going in the next few years. I'm not going to read all of this out. Like I say, a lot of this is on our website, and I'm happy to talk through more of this. But this is how we kind of break it down. And it doesn't matter if you're a foundation or a project or an organization, having this kind of breakdown is really, really useful. And all of this should be underpinned by the foundation itself, having values and living them, demonstrating excellence in financial prudence, in being staffed and governed by a talented and committed team, and that, the foundation itself needs to be viewed as stable, as professional, as effective, so that companies have confidence in us to actually get things done for them in Rust. So, and if the world stays the same, that's great. We've got this plan, of course, what could go wrong? But the world probably won't stay the same. Even since I wrote this speech a couple of weeks ago, the world has changed a little bit. I mean, it's a tech conference, AI, obviously. I have to say something about that. Having a strategy, even that strategy that we worked on last year, AI has come on leaps and bounds since we wrote this strategy last year. And I have no idea where it's going to be in 6 months' time or a year's time. But this is going to materially change how we are implementing this strategy of work that we have planned out. We know this is a thing. We don't know exactly how we can respond to it because we don't know where it's going to be. Also war, everything else. There's lots of massive bummers going on in the world right now. Geopolitics really does affect us in open source. We have to think about where contributions are coming from. We have to think about attack vectors. We have to think about, who is where, or who is in what country, which key maintainer suddenly finds himself on the wrong list of trusted people just by virtue of their nationality. These are things that we actually have to worry about, and we have no idea what's going to happen next. The last week or so has been quite surprising. Who knows what next week will bring? We have to be able to kind of respond to this. There are a lot of unknown unknowns. So we have to build in resilience as well. We have to avoid baking in risky dependencies. We have to avoid over-reliance on key personnel. The bus factor is obviously something that we worry a lot about in open source. We have to diversify our income. We can't just be reliant on one or two companies. We have to partner and collaborate and spread risk around and create room for maneuver in trying to achieve all of those things that we said, these are the things that we need to do to get to where we're going. So, we think about this in terms of, okay, what are these risks? How can we develop contingencies for these? What do we do if the worst happens? And I would just sort of finish by saying, even doing all of that, it's difficult. 6 months later, an awful lot of the time, these strategies feel like clunky and out of date. As I said, even with the changes in AI, this is already feeling like a little bit out of date to me. But it still provides the basis for a good unified narrative. Whether you're a project or a foundation or an organization, having a strategy enables you to talk really fluidly about where you're going and what you're doing and why. And it enables you to say what you're not prioritizing. It makes it easier for me to say no to stuff, having a strategy, because it means I can be less reactive. It means I can say, look, that's super interesting, but I have to prioritize, and my priorities need to be in the strategy that I have agreed with my board and with my community. And it demonstrates to stakeholders that you're taking things seriously. You're taking these things seriously. Stakeholders can have some confidence in what we're going to do because we have laid it down here. They know that for the next 3 years, we are prioritizing these kinds of things, like Rust for inference in AI, for instance. And, you know, it enables us to work towards shared goals. Everyone knows where we are. Everyone knows what's important to us, how to talk to us, how to frame things. The community understands where we're going. So yeah, it's I think a really valuable exercise, even if it feels like a paper exercise. I would really encourage you to invest in doing strategy work. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. It's been great to be here. And yeah, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Your speech was really incredible. Okay, next we have Stephanie Tyler from Program Lead, Google Summer of Code. She will be talking about tips for applying as a Google Summer of Code contributor. Please welcome her. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to jump right in. I know things running a little bit later today, so I'm going to jump right in here. And, oh, I have a timer. Sweet. Okay. I am Stephanie Taylor. I have been leading the GSOC, or Google Summer of Code, as we call it, program for 11 years now. And we do have a booth outside, so come by and say hi to us for all of those here in person if you have any questions. I'm not going to have time for questions during this talk, but I'll be happy to chat with you at our booth. All right. Oh, there we go. So I'm not going to go into what Google Summer of Code is today. We talked about that yesterday during the community day. Hopefully, if you're in this room, you're here to hear specifically about some of the tips for applying to GSOC. So since I only have about 15 minutes or so, I'm going to focus solely on that. So by now, hopefully, you've already looked at the list of mentoring organizations. There are 184 of them that are participating this year. Hopefully you've narrowed it down to 3, 4, maybe 8 that interest you, and you've started reaching out to those organizations. That is very, very important. You need to have some sort of conversation with them before you go and submit your proposal. The proposal is required, but it is not nearly as important as it used to be. Now, what you need to make sure you're doing is reading all of the instructions that the organizations provide to you in their contributor guidance. It's also usually written in their ideas list of what they want you to do. But we'll briefly go through this. So you should have already thought about what interests you. Are you interested in security? Are you interested in science, social? That's going to help you figure out the right organization for you. Also, obviously, hopefully, you are going to need to make sure that you pick a project or community that is using technology that you're familiar with. So if you see a project like, oh, they're using C++, but I don't know C++, don't apply for that project, because you do need to be able to code in that programming language, because you're going to be doing that for 3+ months this summer. And finally, do think about your other commitments in your life. If you have a family member that you're taking care of, or maybe you're taking one class this summer, maybe you're not going to have time to do a 350-hour project. That's fine. There are a lot of projects that are the 175-hour projects. I think about 40% or so of the projects last year were the medium-sized 175-hour projects, and about 50% were large 350-hour projects, and another 5% were the small projects. All right, now, oh no, wrong button, sorry. This is supposed to be intuitive. Sorry, it's not intuitive to me. All right, so how to reach out to the organization. Like I said, hopefully you've already started this, but if you haven't, it's not too late for some of the organizations. Some organizations, it is too late because they've already had people reaching out to them for the past 3 weeks, since February 19th when we announced all the organizations. And so they've already been inundated with, in some cases, hundreds of people reaching out to them. And so they can't really have, take on new people to start having these conversations with. So this is why getting in early is really important. So if you're just kind of learning about GSOC right now, maybe you're looking at doing this next year, that's great. This gives you plenty of time to prepare and get ready. So the organizations have a section on their page that says contact methods. Usually it's reach out to them through a Slack channel, Discord, maybe it's a Google group or some kind of mailing list. They'll have it very clearly lined out and marked how they want you to reach out to them. Pick an idea from that list. Every idea is not going to interest you, so don't worry if you read the first 2 or 3 and go, not so much. That's okay. Often the idea you want might be at the very bottom, so just keep on reading. And sometimes you're looking at an idea and you're thinking, this is so hard. How am I possibly going to do this? Check out the rating. They might have rated that as kind of an intermediate or a difficult project. So it's okay. Look for the easy projects. Do the research before you ask questions to the community. Yes, they want you to ask questions, but don't just ask a question for the sake of asking a question. Make sure you've read their documentation and that you are asking an educated question, and they want to help you. They want you to succeed, but you also don't want to be wasting their time by just going, oh, well, how do I do this? When it's clearly marked right there at the top of their documentation. So don't do that, because that's not a good first impression either. Got it right this time. Okay. So now you're working, you've talked to the organization. Now think about when you're writing your proposal. I keep going back to this. Really make sure you pick the project size or scope of project that's going to fit your lifestyle, because you do not have to do a 350-hour project. Remember, no one is telling you you have to do this project. It's your responsibility to find a project that interests you. You're going to spend 3 months coding on this project, so you don't want it to be boring or something you don't like. Make sure it's something that you want to learn more about. You can submit up to 3 proposals. So oftentimes people will submit a proposal to one org and another one to org B, another one to org C. You can submit 2 proposals or even 3 to the same org. 3 usually doesn't make much sense, because you should be having conversations with the organizations and they'll be pointing you to, you know what, how about you're interested in these 2 ideas. They'll often try to point you towards one idea, whether it's because it's a better fit for you, but also maybe not as many people are applying to that project idea. So they're trying to help you find the project idea that's going to be less competitive and that you're more likely to be able to be accepted with. Also keep in mind, I've run these statistics a couple times over the last few years, and it's consistently the same. About 96% of people who are accepted into GSOC only submitted 1 or 2 proposals. So very few people have the time and the energy to write 3 really good proposals and to have all of that communication that they have to have with the organizations. So don't try to spread yourself too thin. I would say focus on 1 or 2. I understand doing 2 because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. That's okay. But 3, very few people can actually do 3 proposals and have all of that quality communication with the organization in a good way. The proposals are not meant to be massive papers. They're not going to be 20 pages long. Generally, they're 3 to 8 pages. Sometimes, depending on the project, that might include you doing some sort of graphs or some sort of visual, so that might take up more space. But you don't have to worry about it being a massive thesis or this massive paper that you're writing. The organizations just want to see that you're thinking through the idea, that you've thought through the process. Doesn't even have to be 100% correct. It's just they want to see that you've gone, okay, the first thing I would do is this, then I would do this, then I would do this. And if something's wrong in that process, they'll help you, fix that. But they just want to see that you're thinking through it and that you're really trying and that you're excited about being part of their community. Because remember, in the end, ultimately, the orgs, they want to help you learn, but they really want you to stay involved in their community. So you want to be a good community member from the very beginning. And that also, just keep in mind, means helping answer questions of other GSOC contributors. So if you're all on a big forum and somebody asks a question and you already know that answer because either you asked it or you saw somebody else answer that question, go ahead and answer that question. Only answer it if you know the exact answer. But that saves the organization and the mentors the effort of answering those questions as well. So it's always good to help others because that's the open source way. So showing that you're doing that from the very beginning is a very good sign for the organizations to go, oh, this is definitely somebody we want in our community. You want to keep on communicating with the organization. So if you are submitting your proposal, say next Friday, you still want to keep in contact with the organization. Don't don't send them an email or on their chat channel every day, but you want them to remember you. You don't want to try to drop off of their radar. So, have some sort of communication every few days just so that they remember you. And again, if that can be you answering somebody else's question on their forums, that's great. That's probably the best way to do it because you're showing that you're a team player. Very important in open source. There's also an entire chapter in our contributor guide on how to write a project proposal. It's pretty straightforward, but it's very detailed, so just check that out. It's, when I say chapter, it's about 2 to 3 pages, so very easy. Okay, so this is what the page will look like. This is actually, obviously, last year's, because it says 2025, but it looks exactly the same this year. If you go to our GSOC site, at the top, we have all of the different types of categories available. And then you can sort by security, media, web, etc. So you can narrow down the projects. Then you can also search using where that green arrow is for technologies. If you know Python, check out Python. If you know C++, you can do that. And it'll filter these organizations down for you. And then when you click on one, you'll see over on the right side is basically that's the contact us section. So they'll say, okay, you'll click on that and that's how you chat, or you can send them something to their mailing list. The other two that are really important, the blue ideas list, which again, at this point, hopefully you've already started looking at these ideas lists. And then finally, contributor guidance. Super important. 90+% of organizations have something in that field. We strongly suggest they do. Hopefully more of them will do it this year. But in that contributor guidance, they're telling you exactly what they want you to do. So that means maybe they have a template that they want you to use for your proposal. Maybe they want you to introduce yourself in their Zulip community, or maybe they want you to do a particular test or find a bug. They'll specifically tell you step by step what they want you to do. Follow those directions exactly. Because if you don't, especially this year, you're more likely to just have your proposal completely ignored. Because following instructions is incredibly important to this entire program, and it's one of the ways that they can weed out, if they have 200 people applying, if only 50 people followed the proposal template that they specifically put in their contributor guidance, the other 150 they're going to ignore. So make sure you're following their instructions. They have their list of ideas, you click on one, everyone will look a little different, but generally it'll have the skills required, the complexity, so this one is rated hard. It'll also have the project size. Sometimes a mentor is listed, sometimes it's not listed quite yet, but they have mentors for the idea, it's okay. And then they'll have a description of the project. This organization actually gave you some of the deliverables. Some of them actually want you to figure that out on your own. So everyone will be a little bit different, but this is generally what you're looking at. So let's talk about this for a bit. I mentioned the template, follow instructions, both very important. Next, very important, especially right now, be very, very careful about using AI in any shape or form when writing your proposal, and certainly if you do get accepted, about using AI to help you write any kind of code. Every organization has listed their stance on using AI tooling, and some of them allow it, some of them allow it in certain circumstances. Most do not allow it when you're writing your proposal, with the exception that sometimes it is okay to use it for translation purposes. They understand English is not the first language for most people. Most of your mentors, English is not the first language for them either. So that's fine. But it is very easy, trust me, very easy to tell when a proposal is written using AI. And if the organization says, don't use AI in your proposal, and you do, yours essentially is immediately thrown away. You were literally just out, they won't even read it. So make sure you read what their stance is on AI and what they allow and don't allow. Every org is different, so don't make any assumptions from one org to the next org. So you can go and submit your proposal at g.co/gsoc. That is our main GSOC site. Please do not wait until the final day or even final 3 days to submit your proposal. GSOC is very popular. It looks like we're going to have record numbers this year. We had record numbers last year. I'm hoping we don't double those again because that's a lot of people, but we might. So a lot of people are going to be going in and submitting their proposals. Do not wait till the last minute because if your computer breaks, there's an earthquake, you get sick, your Wi-Fi goes out, that's too bad. We don't do exceptions. We can't. There's too many people involved in this program, and our team is 3 people. We cannot do exceptions for any reason. So make sure that you submit your proposal. I strongly suggest submitting it in the first week because when you submit your proposal, you can always submit another, basically update it until the deadline. So at least you know, hey, this is 95% of what I wanted. I'm gonna probably make some tweaks, but even if something happens, again, your computer breaks, you don't get around to making those tweaks, it's okay because you already have that good proposal in there that's almost perfect. And so at least you know it's submitted, the mentors are gonna be able to look at it, and it will be evaluated. The worst thing is you spent hours writing this proposal and you wait until the day before and your Wi-Fi doesn't work. Or again, you get sick, there's an earthquake, family emergency, whatever it might be. So please, we do not do any exceptions. You must submit it. So I can't stress this enough. And then also the earlier you submit the proposal, this is gonna be a little more challenging this year because again, there's so many people that have already been reaching out to orgs. They're not gonna have a lot of time to give people feedback. Sometimes some orgs are not as well known, so they might have a little more time and be able to do that. And that's really important too. Don't just go, oh, well, I've heard of this org and I'm gonna apply because I've heard of this particular organization. Everybody else has also heard of that organization, so everybody else is applying to that organization. And there are a few of them that are in the list that are getting hundreds, will probably end up with over 1,000 proposals by the end of the application period, whereas others might get 10. So, and that's not to say that these other orgs aren't doing cool things. It's just they don't have the big name, but they could be having some really cool projects that actually are more interesting to you. So again, check out the orgs, do your research, find something that's really interesting to you. Oh, and just back there, yes, so you will receive a confirmation email as soon as you send, within seconds, when you send your proposal. So if you don't get a confirmation email saying that you submitted that proposal, then it didn't go through. So make sure that if you're like, well, I don't know, the Wi-Fi's been a little weird, it probably went through. It didn't get that email, it didn't go through. So try again. This is the timeline. All of this is available on our site. Next week, March 16th, 1800 UTC is when we will open the applications on the site. So it is going to get slammed at that point. You don't need to go in right at 1801 UTC on Monday. It's okay because it's not about first person that submits it wins. It's not like that. So it's fine if it's, I think, 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. here in the morning at 1800 UTC on technically it'll be March 17th for y'all. So you don't need to be waiting up in the middle of the night. Wait till you get up the next day. When you get around, go in and register yourself and then submit your proposal. This is a page that you might want to take a picture of. A lot of links. The top one will pretty much get you to all the others, but that is super helpful. Also at our booth, we have a QR code, which I should have put in this deck, that you can use to these same links and a couple of others. So you can come by and take a picture of that. All right, I'm almost out of time, so I'll see a few more pictures. Okay, and again, feel free to come by and chat with me at the GSOC booth. Happy to give you some pins and some swag and answer all your questions about GSOC. Okay, oh, a few more pictures. All right. Okay, and done. All right. Well, we don't have time for questions, so I'm just trying to finish before the timer goes off because I don't want to be that person. So, all right. Thank you all for coming today. Hopefully you got a little more insight. Happy to chat with you more individually about some tips for getting to GSOC. And good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was really helpful tips. Okay, now please welcome Justin McLean, Community Manager, Data Structure. He'll be talking about a decade of lessons from Apache Software Foundation incubator releases. Please welcome with a big hand. Thank you.
Hi everyone. In case you're wondering why I'm looking so colourful, I arrived here but my luggage did not, so I had to go do a bit of shopping yesterday. So thanks everyone for being here. For several years I've been involved with the Apache Software Foundation and mostly with the Apache Incubator. And the Incubator is a project that helps new projects learn how to operate as sustainable open source communities. And one part of that process is reviewing releases. So the release is reviewed by the community itself and they decide whether they're going to release it or not release it. And sometimes they may go through several release candidates. So these discussions about these releases happen on mailing lists, and that is incredibly useful because it means we have a record about how projects collaborated with each other during this process. So we can actually look back past all of these releases, and that's exactly what I've done. And I've looked at more than a decade of releases, and that data reveals something interesting and some common patterns across different communities, and it shows how communities evolve and grow over time. Is this? Oops, no. I didn't push that button. What is going on there? Sorry, could you go back? It seems to be auto-advancing. Oh, okay. So maybe I should just say next slide because you keep advancing the slides and I'm not even there yet. That's cool. So could you go back, please? Yes, thank you. So I'm going to start with a question. When was the last time a release actually made your project stronger or your community stronger? Now, making a release is not just creating a new version of the software. It is also improving about how the community works. Releases are moments where coordination, expectations, and trust all come together. And because of that, they can be quite stressful. Things can go wrong. Maintainers worry about missing something important. Contributors worry about whether they follow the process correctly, whether they're asking stupid questions. Reviewers worry about, or maybe I shouldn't point this thing out because this will block progress. And so this can be stressful. But when they're handled well, they can actually strengthen a community rather than create friction within it. Next slide, please. So as I said, I've looked at more than a decade of releases at the ASF incubator, and this included 1,600 releases and 160 projects over that time. Now, these projects are all different. They use different technologies, they use different languages, they try to solve different problems. So none of these things were the same, but there were certainly a few patterns that came out. And each of these release threads on email contains a lot of information. It contains comments and corrections and approvals. And this makes it a really useful place to observe how open source communities evolve over time. And again, what makes them grow. Next, please. So releases can create friction. They are full of last-minute surprises, and many projects over this 1,600 threads have the same similar problems during releases. You know, someone discovers a problem at the last minute. Feedback arrives that seems inconsistent or ambiguous. Policies or rules that the project may have written down were thought to be clear but are not actually clear when you look at them in detail. And so in looking at all these problems, there are some problems that come from the code itself. You know, this patch that we put in didn't work and now this release is broken, we've got to make a new one. But that is actually rarely the case. They mostly come from unclear expectations. So when contributors are not sure what a release process requires, then every release becomes this long discussion about what's the right thing to do or not do. Next, please. In general, as projects mature, this gets easier. So there are fewer rejected releases. Rejections become less common, reviews become faster, releases require a few last-minute corrections. But it's important to note that this happens in two ways. There's improvement in projects itself, and there was also improvements within the incubator. But this wasn't because we lowered standards. It was because expectations became clearer. It's because projects improved documentation, created checklists, and made the release process easier to understand. This is particularly important about the first release. The first release that a project makes often receives the most detailed review, because this is the first time you're doing something, and people are very careful about it because they're still learning the process. And that makes that release a calibration point. And it actually sets up expectations for future releases. So it's really important to get the first one right. You can still change over time and correct, you know, if the first one didn't go well. But getting the first one right means things go more smoothly after that. Next, please. So the other thing that I've seen that has changed over time is actually the tone in conversation around releases. Often early on in a project slice, the reviews will be actually quite harsh, and they'll say, you know, this is invalid, you've got to fix this, we can't release software like this. But as a project matures, they will say, well, this is not correct, but this is why it matters. And, you know, let's fix this up. And when reviewers explain why something matters, contributors learn how the process works rather than just simply correcting mistakes. So they get a deeper understanding of why we do things in a certain way rather than I just need to fix this. And because these conversations happen in public on a mailing list, these become permanent reference for future collaborators on the project as well. So it is common knowledge and can be referred to. Next, please. So one of the other things which I discovered, and this is obvious, but it's actually a lot stronger than I thought it was, is that when a project is healthy, they make releases at a regular interval. And that regular interview doesn't have to be every single month. It could be they release every few months. It could be they release every year. But the contributors understand when releases will happen and how the process works. And that gives stability to a project. When projects begin to struggle, they often lose that rhythm. So the time between releases becomes more irregular, and fewer contributors participate in reviews, coordination becomes harder, and it just gets more difficult to get a release out. So the single indicator that I've seen across all of these 160 projects is actually release cadence. And if release cadence falters, it's a very early sign that a project may be in trouble. And it's not about releasing quickly. There are some projects that release every couple of months. There are some that make a release every year. And it's more about the predictable rhythm. And that is certainly an early warning sign. Next, please. So, yeah, these signals appear before a project starts to slow down. And the gaps between releases grow longer. There's fewer contributors being involved. Power tends to concentrate, or authority, amongst a few people. And there's only a few people then reviewing the releases. And it ends up with a small group of people doing most of the work. And that is dangerous, not because it's unsustainable. Sometimes these people do have the time and can put in the effort to do that. But it means that there's something that's risky there, that if there is conditions change, if a company that is involved with the project pulls out, suddenly it's a lot more difficult to be able to recover from that than if you had more people involved. And sometimes these issues appear again and again, and that's because knowledge hasn't been transferred on to new contributors in the project. And these are not technical issues. Again, these are all issues to deal with coordination in making releases. Next, please. So what can you do to help your projects sustain, live longer, and make releases? Well, improve your release process. Make small structural changes to it. Document the process. Use templates and checklists. Make sure that expectations are clear. That is the most important thing. Use simple automation to check mechanical things. Don't rely on it 100% though, because if you rely on it 100%, it will miss things and you won't notice. And these improvements reduce uncertainty and make it far easier for contributors to participate in it. You don't need any more rules, you just need clearer expectations. Next. You can skip this one, just go next. So I'm running out of time. So, communities mature by reducing ambiguity. And where you make releases, these are moments where communities test coordination, trust, and shared expectations. And I've looked at 10 years of release discussions, as I said, 1,600 threads, 160 projects, and there's one lesson that appears consistently. Communities mature not by adding more rules, but by reducing ambiguity. And when the expectations are clear, contributors feel more confident in participating in your community, and that strengthens your community, and that means your community will grow. Thank you. I will be here for the rest of the conference, so if you have any questions about my talk or about the ASF Incubator in particular, come see me.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
That's right.
Okay, now we will begin a panel discussions of open source as a bridge between university and global collaboration.
Well, I feel. You guys.
Okay, we have Rachel Greensid, professor from New York University, Justin Kopos from New York University as well, and Titi Pat Chakun Visut from lecturer from Mahidol University, Nati Nepanan from Chulalongkorn University, and Kamon Pan Liu Prasid from Data Team Lead, IMED. Please welcome.
Hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. So welcome to the panel discussion. For this session, we are going to discuss the very important topic, open source as a bridge between university and global collaboration. University is just a place to learn, to where you can learn the code, but now it is where the incubator and the global research for the long-term open source stewardship. So in here, I'm from Chulalongkorn University as well, and I'm the host today for the moderator of this topic. So I would like, we now have an incredible panelist here from both New York University, Mahidol University, and also Chulalongkorn University. To begin the session, I would like everyone, the panelists, to introduce themselves, to introduce about the research focus and how open source can fit in the world of academic world. Okay, so let's start with Professor Rachel, please.
Hello, nice to meet you. This is good. I am Rachel Greenstadt. I'm a professor of computer science and engineering at New York University. My research is in security and privacy as it overlaps with artificial intelligence and human-centered computing. I had a talk just an hour ago about trying to understand the effects of censorship on large language models. So a lot of my research has to do with taking closed systems, like trying to understand ad tech or LLMs or black box systems, and make them a little bit more transparent through reverse engineering. I also have been involved in the open source community a lot because I'm married to Roger Dingledine, who you might have seen talk before, so I've been very connected to this community, but I think it's very important for research, for reproducibility, and open science for these communities to work very well together.
That's really cool. So coming up next, we have Professor Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Kapos. I'm a professor at NYU as well. I build a lot. I would say probably 2/3 of the work that I do is really just work with open source projects that are out there. I built a lot of widely used software in part because I started to build software supply chain security tooling like 20 years ago when no one cared about it. And now it's become like this hot thing. So people have used a lot of stuff like Tough and Toto, GitTough, things like that, like Optane. I've done a lot of work on like Git security and other stuff like that as well, and work with a lot of the big players in the space. And really, like my area is I tend to do kind of build systems and things like that. And I really just care about solving problems that matter to people. That's all that really matters. So, we find some area inside of cloud native technology or inside of package managers or inside of something else. And our goal isn't just to kind of like write a paper or, get a student to do a project. It's how can we make it so that this part of the real world now works in a better way. And that's really what our primary focus is on. So that's a lot of, going into these communities and getting to know them and working with people and, becoming like valued community members so that we can help to actually make a positive impact.
That's involved a lot about open source. Next, we have two professors from Thailand. Yeah, please welcome Professor Thitipat.
So thank you so much for the invitation. So my name is Thitipat. So my labs, I think my previous work was like doing more on like the building tool for science. So I did some like recommendation engine and also like matching them for conferences, like that include like matching paper to reviewers for like neuroscience conferences. So yeah, we kind of like after we building tools, we also like open source these like repository, right? So that like people can like reproduce like what we did in like the conferences. After getting back to Thailand, like I kind of like do more on like building tool for also like in medical domains. So that include like some screening tools, some like speech to text for Thai that like some people already like use the train some models, and we collaborate a lot with like the Thai community also. So yeah, like a lot of like my research, like I think I same as Justin, like I try to build the research, and then we also try to open source like these models or like the code that we do so that people can reproduce our code. Yeah, I think that's kind of all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And next we have Professor Nati.
Hi, compared to the other lecturer, I'm the one that focus more on the management. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Nati Dipanan. I'm the associate professor at Chulalongkorn University. I'm associated head of planning in our department. So my job, my research is mostly about robotics, but most of the work is just a derivative work of trying to solve the local problem. Not much interesting in that thing, but most of the time, the time that I spend is usually focusing on the improvement of the process of our curriculum, how the curriculum should be, how can we integrate the industrial or any real world experience to our student, and how we improve that and improve the teaching. So that's most of my work here. Besides that, I have let's say side project. I'm in charge of the nurturing the new programmer in Thailand. I'm head of the IOI team in Thailand, so I train the students and send them to compete in IOI and SCPC. So that's all of my work. Thank you.
Cool. So now we know all the background of each professor. Now let's deep dive into each topic. So maybe we start with Professor Rachel. Your research is in the privacy and security, and also you are doing the automation. It is for in the open source community. So about the sharing tools and dataset is very critical. How does open sourcing your research accelerating collaboration across different universities and countries? Do you see the open source as a requirement for modern security research?
For more than security research,
Yes, for the research.
Yes, I do think that open sourcing is very important for research, because especially in the context of otherwise it's very hard to, there's two aspects of it really. There's reproducibility, so the ability of other people to check your work, to understand what's going on and actually validate that the thing you say in your paper is what you think it is and isn't just because you had a bug in your code. And I think the other aspect of it is being able to have impact on the real world, and both whether that's impact on other researchers for them to be able to build on your system, even if they're far away from you and can't like go stay with you very closely. And also for people outside of academia to potentially take into account your work. Unlike Justin, I have not done a lot of work on maintainability and actually maintaining projects myself, because I don't think that's necessarily where my strongest strength and interests lie, but I do try and build strong relationships with the community and make at least mine and my students' initial messy, ugly research code available so that other people can build on it and work with other people to do that. So I think that those things are very important to, both for the scientific process itself, but also for the wider kind of impact of the work.
And about the bridging the gap between, you say that the community is very important, right? And how you reach out into the main community to transform the research into the open source project.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, especially because, students often are, short-lived. But I think there's a lot of different ways to do this. Some approaches are when you have students that graduate and then go become involved in projects and are able to take things forward that way. Another way is to go to conferences like this and make people aware of your work and try and get people that are interested in, taking things another step. But it is challenging. Like, things do fall through the cracks, and we have to be, I think, building better bridges, because right now they're sort of small, rickety bridges that it's easy to get things started, and then a student graduates, and then nobody knows what happened to that piece of code, and nobody understands why we're using that library anymore, and everything kind of vanishes in a puff of graduation. So building, one reason I'm interested in being here and connecting more with open source community and other researchers that are interested in these types of topics is, again, to figure out better ways to do this, especially for people in the research community that want to work with open source, but maybe aren't ready to lead and maintain a project all the time, and for researchers that, have varying interests in that regard.
Yeah.
Like this is like very interesting. So like, for like connecting to community, like so I built like some repository like to parse like the Medline like library, like it's in XML format, and then like turn it into Python, right? Python JSON format. So yeah, like like people use it a lot for like extracting data from Medline, and I use it to train like large language model and stuff, like also like multimodal models. After I moved back to Thailand, right, like I don't have much time to maintain the code, so I just like have like an issue, right? I just like call for maintainers, and then like somehow like there's like a groups like Max Planks in Max Planck that like kind of like use my code like extensively, and then they are like, oh yeah, like we are happy to like take on the code, and then like we will maintain it for you. So like that's really cool, like that. Now like I still have the main code on my repository, but yeah, the maintainers are kind of like from Max Planck now, like which is like really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool example of the story. Yeah. Okay. So maybe moving on to Professor Justin, your work is an example of the academic research making the massive real-world impact. Projects like TUF and in total is now Linux Foundation project. Yeah, and congratulations. And it's also used by the tech giants and millions of cars. How do you transition between the university research into the global open source standard? Yeah. And how do you involve your student in maintaining the long-term stewardship? Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of work, a lot of luck, a lot of relationships with people, and really building a community. I think that I see, kind of Roger here in the audience, and one thing I would guess that if he had to choose between like having to restart Tor with all the community gone, or reconstruct all of the research that went into Tor and the code base, he'd probably rather have the community, would be a guess. And I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of people in academia don't really understand. A lot of times it's not so much the ideas, it's getting the people who believe and want to pull it together. And so, once you get a little bit of momentum, and, for us, for TUF, one of the big milestones was a bunch of folks from Docker had seen some of the work we'd done with the Python community to start them using TUF, and they became very interested. And that led like Microsoft and Amazon and all these other big organizations to go and start adopting. And then that rolled over into things that caused it to be used in outside of like cloud and programming language environments where cars started to use it. And a few years ago, we had some folks come to us and say, hey, we want to use this to protect the law, like the actual legal code. And now we have Washington, D.C., Baltimore, the state of Maryland, and like a dozen or so other places in the US are all using this system that we built for protecting like software update related stuff, to protect the legal code and to protect all these things that we were never thinking about. And so it's just making the community a good supportive place and making it so that everybody who wants to be able to be part of the community can come and do that. And that what really happens then is we have people that as part of their full-time job, they work at these other organizations and they're willing to put their time, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their evenings, do things like that because they feel, a part of the community, and they're such a core part of everything we do. So that's really what I think you have to do, or at least that's where you need to have a plan to get to, I think, to really make something self-sustainable on the short lifetime. But we do not kill our students, by the way. They graduate and go on places. But beyond these short-lived students that Rachel was alluding to.
All of my students are still alive, as far as I know.
Yeah, to be clear on that. Yeah, but I think it's just a very good. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like maintaining the open source in the long run, right? But I think it's just a good concern that we need to think more on the community and application so that we have the maintainer in the long run. Next, maybe we're moving on the topic about the open data and interdisciplinary and innovation. So to Professor Titipat, as you also doing the AI for medical as well, and how are you integrating open source practice into the biomedical research here in Thailand? And how does it help your students collaborate on the global scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me, right, I kind of like want to do, I do open source for a while. I have like built packages like PubMed Parser, as I mentioned. I also like release some code on like claim extraction from scientific publications. So those are like kind of like the small repos, right? That I don't know, like that people will use it. Like, and then like probably like 5 years ago, like there was a startup like called Consensus that like try to kind of like do like this startup on like extracting these claim, and then like they want to do like question answering on like these like Medline abstracts, and they build a startup, like so they like reach out to me so I send out the code and then the data that we collected, and then they build a startup on top of like that like open source repo, right? Now they have like 5-6 million users like in Consensus. So like I try to I think for the student, right, like when you are doing some problems that you, I think like it's impactful to you, right? Like it's a good way to like just package the code together, like release the code, like maybe whether you are in Thailand or like somewhere else, right? Maybe like people like spot this code, and then like if like the problem is like suitable for them, like they can use it later on, right? Like same as like matching algorithm, like we I mean like I run these like matching algorithm in the conferences for like maybe like 4 or 5 years, right? And the recommendation engine, so we match like and we have like an actual sessions in the like CCN conference in neuroscience, like where we have people like gathering together, like we do like a matching, like running the open source algorithm that I did, right? Like and then people like felt really good, like having like that they get matched at the conferences, right? And then somehow like during the COVID, right? Like we took this code and then we created an online conferences like called NeuroMatch that people like come to online sessions, and then we also like running these matching algorithms. And now it's like kind of like the non-profit organizations that found it, right? And then like people run these like algorithm like in the back end. So yeah, I mean like these kind of code, right? Like I mean it can be like someone like developing like me, and then like the larger amount of like community, as Justin mentioned, can take these code and then run it in like a scale that like impacts so many people. So yeah, like I think that's like a great opportunity, right? Like for everyone here, right? Like for the student, if you like think that like the problem is like impactful, like it's better to like just release it and maybe like someone can use it later. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so it's important to start small. Like it could be like from a lab, from the small
Yep.
problem, and then
Yeah.
it can grow into
Right. And then you
scale.
may have like collaborators like me, right? Like around the world. And I mean, like we probably haven't seen each other in person, but yeah, we know that like, yeah, we exist and we maintain the code. Yeah.
We could meet in some repository.
Yeah. In the issues. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. And for Professor Nati, as a leader in computer engineering at July, you see the foundation education for developer at first hand, and since they are still students for the competitive programming as well. So how do we successfully integrate open source contribution into the university curriculum rather than just teaching the traditional software development? And what are the biggest hurdles in getting Thai students to actively contribute to the global project?
Okay, so how to do that and what is the problem, right? So I think the first step is that we have to recognize the problem first. So university, we as the open source project, the difference between these two is enormous. So in the university, you yourself, your TA, the lecturer, the goal is really simple. They try to make you smarter. That's one thing. So but the open source project, that's different, right? So they have their own deadline, their own agenda, their own issues. There are lots of problems in there. The first one is that it's the one that built for you, for the student, and the other one is like the world that does not really own you anything. So the gap is enormous. Now the student have to go across this gap to do the open source. To have to walk across this gap. But so let's see how hard we can walk that. Okay, let's try cost benefit analysis first. For the cost, what is the problem in doing the open source for the student? What is it? What is it? I think for let me answer myself then. Okay, the cost of doing the open source, beside the time that you spend on that,
Yeah.
for the student is that you have to be wrong. Not just wrong, you have to be wrong on the public. So you think of your first commit. Think of your first commit that you're trying to put into any open source project. You put lots of time into that, and for be able to do that, you have to be prepared that okay, I can be wrong, and not just wrong. It's wrong in the public. If you send some exercise to me and I grade that, maybe you're wrong, but I tell you personally that okay, you are wrong. I never told the other student that you are wrong. I say that someone did something wrong. We should learn from that. That's right. That's the university. But for the open source project, you put something on the Merkle tree and it's there. It's there until the server gone. Yeah, it's there. Yeah. Myself, I commit API key twice in the project. Yeah, right? It takes a lot of time to take that out.
The commit is there forever.
Yeah, it's in there. I have to request new API key. That's the problem. So I believe the cost for the student is enormous for the student, not for ours. Okay, we may get used to that, but for the student, for the first time, it's really hard. And what about the benefits? What the student get from the joining the open source? Oh, of course, the usual suspect is there, but from the student, the key point is about the grade, the point, right? There's how much I get from how much point I get from doing this commit. It's like that, right? Okay, we have to be honest here. Okay, we can say that, oh, you learn a lot, you grow a lot, you build your fan base, something like that. But eventually, many students, if you make it as a requirement, if you mandatorise it, the problem is that they have to think about the grade, and it's not good, right? You cannot force collaboration. It has to begin organically. Right? If you force the collaboration, it's destroy the whole purpose of collaboration, right? Actually, it's been there, done that things many years ago. I'm not sure many years, but I let's say I force myself. I say that if you commit to Wikipedia in Thailand, I give you points, but that's requirement. It's requirement 5% of my grade is actually falling on that homework. The result is, of course, end badly. The editors, the Thailand Wikipedia editor is very accommodating. They are very patient. But the end result is that we do more harm than good. right? Because if you force collaboration, the result is that you don't get anything meaningful collaboration. You got noise, and it's not fair for the communities, right? The story is that they update something wrong, the editor delete it, and my student fight with the collaborator that I need this one for my point, so please bring it back. I go, oh, I have to contact the editor and ask them to try to educate us for something like that. Okay, let me summarize it. It's like too big of the cost, too little of the benefit. So finally, I said how. so how we solve this one? Like I said before, it had to be organic. Okay, so as an educator, what you can do is that we have to advocate for that. We have to point the very clear for us the benefit of joining the episode project to the student. That's what we have to do, right? Okay, in this AI era, writing a code is no longer a differentiator, right? Right. I used to proud my students that, oh, they're the best coder in the world. They got gold medal from IOI or something like that. But it's not really important anymore. Like you can pay $100 and got a cloud code. and my commit in GitHub last week outpaced all of my work last year. Right. Just thanks to that 100 that I paid to the code cloud. Yeah. So writing a code is no longer important in my, okay, it's still important. Critical thinking is still king, but communication is much more important. And joining the open source is actually focused on that. Every time you commit something, every time you negotiate some feature to be there, every time you put the comment, it's about the communication. And that is the benefit. We have to point this thing to the student. I'm not sure step over my time. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's a very important, interesting topic that we are talking about, the AI that you mentioned. And I really love the point about, as a student, people need to make the mistake at some point, and they need to learn in the public about how to do. Yeah, maybe we learn from what could go wrong, and we cannot force the collaboration. Yeah, and I think that's a very important point that you mentioned. Yeah. Okay, so actually, this question is like open to all. Then moving on, the next topic is more on the academic incentive problem. It's like maybe in the academic, how would you change the incentive structure in a university so that writing and maintaining impactful open source code is valued as just highly as publishing the top tier journal, because in academic the top tier is like the most valued one, right?
All right, yeah. I'll start with this. So there are schools and there are groups that value practical impact, and there are places that look at you like an H index. That's basically how they measure you. So when I went out on the job market, I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever, and I applied to schools, I was very clear that I was not going to be trying to publish a bunch of, top papers every year, that just wasn't my goal. My goal was to have practical impact. And some schools liked that and wanted to, recruit me because of that. And some schools hated that and didn't want to recruit me. And that was a good thing, because I would not have been successful there. So I'm very happy to have found a place at New York University where we have a bunch of very impactful faculty like Rachel, who you've heard a lot about her great background and things like this. And we have others like Rosie Bellini, Damon McCoy, and just tons and tons of really bright folks who've done and built interesting things that have impacted the world. So find a community like that and be the change you want to see in the world.
I can follow up a little bit. I think it is hard, and not everybody is going to want to have the same type of impact, but I think it's important to facilitate it when it is possible and to make things, and there are some things that when you get to be more senior and you're involved in these top tier publications that you can do, at least to handle the problems that you mentioned about being scared to be wrong. So I am a member of the User Security Steering Committee and the Privacy Enhancing Technologies Board, and both. What? No, not that one. But we now have artifact evaluation processes where you submit code and data sets along with your project, and you can get badges for having done that. And especially in the using security, there's actually an open source, open science area where if you do not have code, you have to justify that. Like, you have to explain, there are reasons sometimes where that might be reasonable, but you have to, it's not the default. And that helps students who are afraid, graduate students. So I've had a lot of students before who are like, my code, I just need another couple of months to make it pretty before anyone sees it. I'm afraid, and so on. And if it's just like, no, you have to do it when you submit the paper, at least it's hard. Now, the next question is the maintainability. And of course, this kind of impact can be helpful when you're looking for funding and things like that, but these are sort of more amorphous things. I think we need to move to having at least some awards, like Artifact Test of Time, for people who have artifacts that have become more useful. I think, academics tend to be very motivated by gold stars, and if we create the right gold stars for people to be able to put those things on their CV and have these awards, then we can recognize these people, and that can help a lot. So.
Yeah, I can also follow up a little bit. Yeah, I was lucky that I was in a lab that kind of they understand the work that in open source software, right? So when I did this software and then show my advisor, and he was like, yeah, that's really cool, right? They are thousands of people cloning your repos per week and then use it. That's probably more people that will read your paper, right? So I grew up in the community that value these kind of you take the code and you make it useful for the communities. You see that it's being taken and then use it at the conferences. I was lucky that. I'm in that positions, right? When I was a student. So when I transferred back to here in Thailand, I try to also encourage my students to kind of do the open source software, right? When they do publish the paper, try to have some artifacts or code that people can reproduce. I have very, very bad commits before, right? For example, I do all the documentations without Sphinx, right? I don't even know Sphinx, and I commit to PyGLM nets, it's a generalized linear model repo, and I put all the documentation there, and then the maintainer is just oh, you can use Sphinx, and then it will auto-generate these comments, right, onto the documents. So I think people in the open source community are generous enough that you don't have to be scared, right, on doing wrong things, right? They were just oh yeah, you people don't typically do this. Look at this documentations and then just try to reproduce it again, right? So it's quite easy. So you just discard that commit and then do another one, right? So yeah, this kind of very useful for me also to learn. So yeah, for my students, I try to tell them also yeah, it's fine, right, to commit. If it's wrong, it's fine. We can redo that. So yeah, for academic, right? I think especially in Thailand, people don't value these things that much as you all mentioned they value oh, you need these publications, you need these intellectual properties submissions so that you can get monies. I think yeah, those are I'm not sure that's not the best incentive for people to open source, right? So Thai communities, you see not many people doing these open source, and it's very sad in a way that we don't have a good incentive for the system quite yet. Yeah.
So let me be very short. Well, I think the experience is about the same. You write a paper. My worst paper is read by me, my co-author, the reviewer, 5 person at most. It get me promotion, right? You write a paper, you get promotion, right? my software used by 50,000 people. Nothing. You get you on. It get you issue list. Well, it's a lot of issue lists that you have to fix forever. That's the reality in Thailand right now. Okay, for Thailand, also for the whole world is much better. Of course, using open source in your research is very good. It gains more publicity, right? You got more citation and something like that, and it's measurable and it's directly related to the promotion or something. But if you talk about doing just the open source by itself, it's not much about the promotion. Of course, it's trained you, it helps you a lot. It's improve yourself, it improve the communities. But the current reward system in Thailand is not geared toward that. On paper, yes, on paper, yes, we have a written rule saying that thing counts as academics something, but in practice, no, it's not really. And how we do that? My answer is still the same. We have to advocate for that, or we can ask your friend, which just got elected, to change the rule, something like that. Okay. So the summary is that we can really ask them to count what matter, and open source really matter. That's my take on this.
So maybe we feel like the situation in the Thailand and US is a little bit, not a little bit different, a little bit, but not sure. But it's okay.
It depends where you are.
So even in the US, it depends where you are. So yeah, but what I get is like contributing to open source is important. Yeah, that's a one thing. That's like having the thing that is working and people actually using it on that. Okay. And moving to the part about the bridging the gap, how can university in different parts of the world use open source to create better cross-border collaboration? Because I know that in some Git repository, like the contributor can be across of the world, right? And we will create a better cross-border collaboration. What can the university in Bangkok and university in maybe like New York, they can learn from each other to the open source? Maybe to add some more challenge, like maybe can you think about in the AI world where everything is happening so fast, we can have a piece of code that's working in a matter of minutes. Yeah, I think that's very challenging.
I guess I'll start to kick things off. So we have people that contribute to our software from everywhere, literally everywhere. We got a bunch of contributions to someone in one of our projects, GitTough, which is like kind of a security layer on top of Git, and found out that the kid was like 14 years old in high school. Wow. And was doing all these fantastic things. And, you know, but literally by, you know, making things open, letting people participate, you get these wonderful people like we heard from Stephanie Taylor, who does the Google Summer of Code projects and stuff. We've had lots of contributors from programs like that. The Linux Foundation runs a lot of those. And by making it, instead of something that's just like a project of my lab, that in order to join it, you have to come to NYU and be here. If you run open community meetings that anybody can join, and you have like open mailing lists and issue threads and stuff like this, and you build that community, then a lot of times you're going to get all these wonderful outside people that have their own thoughts and their own ideas, and really take your thing and riff on it, and they say, oh, that's amazing, I want to use it for this, or I want to do this great thing with it. I think there are, more Linux Foundation projects that were created based on my projects than the ones that we ourselves created. That I'm not like a maintainer of or whatever. I'm just someone who like helps that project, like downstream projects that are created. And I'm sure that's the same for lots of other communities. So giving other people the opportunity to step up and do awesome things just adds so much.
So the key thing is like to have the communication so that they learn more what to do and like more on the roadmap.
Yeah, don't like hide. I think don't hide the stuff you're doing within your lab and then treat it like, here's what I'm going to publish, or here's my moment of putting something out. At least at least that's what I've done. I'm not saying this makes a lot of sense for all types of research or all types of research groups, because there is this, I think, fear a lot of academics have about being scooped, which maybe is a concern in a lot of communities. But for me, it's like, if you want to scoop me, like, we're spending many years on a lot of these projects, please. Like, we have others, ideas and stuff we could do. Yeah, solve my problem. Come on in and work with us. Like, you want to work on it, then come be a co-author on this. Like, whoever puts the most work in, we'll get a paper out about it. It's just, let's fix stuff. Let's do this work.
I guess, should I add a little bit? I also want to say that, like, one thing I like about New York University and why I wanted to be there is because we're kind of all in on global collaboration. I know that Justin spent some time at our Shanghai campus, and I've spent some time at our Abu Dhabi campus, and we have a global partnership at KAIST in Korea. I spent some time on my sabbatical there. We have some work with IIT Kanpur. We don't yet have connections with in Thailand, but maybe that should change. Our master's program is over like 80% students from various parts of East Asia and the Indian subcontinent. I think, and it makes it a really dynamic place. And when we go to international conferences, we build collaborations, and we work with lots of people. That was how I ended up involved in this Chinese censorship work, which I could not have done as a person who doesn't speak Chinese and doesn't have that kind of expertise, but I have different expertise I can bring to the project. So, I think it's really important.
Yeah, for me, it's like, very important to, I kind of like the ethos here, like put the work out here, right? Like, so, for me, when I try to solve the problems, I put things on open source projects, and I got a lot of friends and collaborators from around the world that comes and contribute on the projects. We have as I mentioned, my projects now is maintained by Max Planck, so it's people at Max Planck, which is very cool. And then some of the talk that I go, right, people just found the repo, right, even before they read my papers, right, they this great repository for doing this cranial implants, auto implants, and then they found this source of code, and then also the models that we released. So they invited to give a talk, and then my students who my student was at KAIST also. So last year they organized a conference at KAIST. So these organizers just move in. We get some food together, dinners there. Yeah. So getting to know these people from around the world, it's, I think, quite nice. We don't know each other before, but they found the code. I think it happens to me probably 80 to 90% of the time that I found my collaborator through these open source community, but not just the research paper that I do. Yeah. Same in Thailand. Yeah, we have people who do speech to text model in Thai. So I know almost people from Typhoon from doing this speech to text model from the lab, right? And then they use it for actually commercialize those speech to text model. Yeah.
So I'm gonna be very short. Okay, so we all agree that open source really help your work, right? But if we focus on the collaborations, so let's start with the problem. I have a student. I have to send them to internship abroad in next 2 months in Tokyo University of Technology. That cannot happen right now. Why? Why is it okay? Because we don't lack. We lack MOU. We haven't signed the MOU yet. And MOU between Chulalongkorn University and TUT is gonna take on average 6 months. Right?
Oh,
Okay. So how open source gonna help that? So that's it's basically just a virtual MOU, right? If I want my student to work as an internship with you, just commit. That's all. That is the first step. That nurture the collaboration. And the other thing is that, okay, sorry, my talk is a bit about some legal aspect. But for our university, everything you do is actually copyrighted by the university. That's just some archaic rule written many years old, and nobody tried to fix that. But it prevents students to work on some companies on the internship, right? Because so my work is going to be copyrighted by your university, so no. But the problem is it's very easy to solve. Just do it open source. You see, it really does not care about that, but the law is there. So how to solve that? Just put that as an open source. Open source is actually the key idea that we can collaborate with the other. For us, I'm quite sure that this problem is not happening in the US, but in Thailand,
It happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it happens everywhere.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have some issues with our Office of Research Commercialization that we have to explain that we're like that open source is a meaningful way, and we've been mostly successful, but there's still headaches.
Okay, I see. That's a hidden issue that is like hidden in the university, but we're not talking in the public. But luckily, we have open source that bridge everything together, and every contributor, no matter of the age, no matter of where they are, they can contribute together. So it's important for both online and have a meaningful like collaboration on the site as well. As you mentioned, like you've been to China and you've been to visiting professor in many places. Yeah, I think that's the wrap of this panel discussion. Actually, like normally I plan to have like if you have any question offline, feel free to ask to these distinguished professors. But yeah, anyone has the question offline that would like to ask? Okay, the short one.
Actually, just a comment. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences. The open source and the internet started off in an academic environment, right? And hopefully this tradition of free and open sharing can also bring about a renaissance of open source here in Thailand. So I just want to add that as one of the organizers, this is why I tried to bring FOSSASIA into Thailand so that we can have conversations like this. And I hope that you'll consider bringing students over and have them, be involved, talk to people, understand what it's all about, and hopefully they will be inspired. And I hope that you will also talk about open source more and more, so that in the very least it starts, people start it comes into their heads, right? And be part of the discourse. The other thing is that I hope you will consider introducing some of your students to GSOC. Yes, because I think that that's a wonderful program, and it's very much underrepresented by Thailand. And again, that is why FOSSASIA exists now, so that we can have a bigger dialogue, wider dialogue about FOSSASIA. So thank you very much.
This is a very good closing remark from Mr. Mishari. And we are running out of time right now. Thank you all the professors here. And we have a really good discussion and collaboration. So if anyone is interested, we can discuss offline.
And I think we have a break next, so if you guys all have questions, we're still going to be around. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and you can find the break in the training center. Thank you. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
You have my student join your internship.
Yeah, we still have one more section left before the break. Yes.
One more session left, everyone. One more
Yes.
session left. Thank you.
If that's not possible, online is okay.
I think we have to move the chair.
So are you saying it?
Okay.
Oh. มาเป็นวันนี้มาร่วมงานป่ะหรือว่ามาช่วยงานเนี่ยเยี่ยมเลยแต่คุณที่ผมไม่ได้มาแล้วขอโทษคุณที่ผมไม่ได้มาอดดูเลยอะแต่ว่าที่ภาคก็เพิ่งรู้จักงานเนี่ย
แล้วเขาก็อินไว้จะ
ใช่แต่ว่า
Okay, we have one more section left. This is our last session before tea break. Please welcome Ms. Papachinaphun for her speech, Thailand Startup Landscape in the Role Through Digital Park. Papachinaphun is Head of International Business from True Digital Park. Thank you. This is your slide.
It's just
okay.
it's like very quick speech, yes. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Before you all going to a break, it's just a quick introduction and also a quick sharing about Chucha Park and how we support Thai startup ecosystem in general. My name is May, and I'm the head of international business here at Chucha Park. So Chucha Park, we're actually the largest startup and innovation hub here in Southeast Asia at the moment. And we have been opening our doors since 2018 to help supporting startup ecosystem here in Thailand. We're the mixed-use building, and the reason why we started Chucha Park back was because back at that time, Thai startup ecosystem is quite underrepresented if we compare to our neighboring countries. Even though our GDP is not so bad, but our startup scene was quite not where we were expecting it to be. So that's why we decided to open Chucha Park in 2018. And ever since we opened from day one, our goal is to help support startup by bringing together all the key players in the startup ecosystem together under one roof. And since 2018 up until now, we have around 6,000 partners across different sectors, across different categories, everything from startups, venture capital, government agencies and government organization, and also institution incubator or accelerator program. And you may be wondering that how exactly do we help support startup ecosystem here in Thailand? Is we actually do it through two different layers. The first one is by providing the fundamental element, which is the physical space. We have everything here from co-working space, fully furnished office, so that for startup, they don't have to worry about sunken costs of scaling up and down, moving the office. They can just move in. And we also have event space, such as this venue, to help supporting startup. And we also have experience centers to showcase technology, latest innovation, and also to act as a touch point for companies to talk to big corporations here in Thailand as well. And the second layers that we do is by providing the sense of community here in Chucha Park. We try to bring together all these different people from different communities together through our events and our programs that some of them we host by ourselves as Chucha Park or under No Madness for expat community here. And some we do it with our partners. Mostly we do it with our partners actually to bring different communities together. And on top of that, we also have other support services like visas, company registration, legal, accounting, or taxation to help supporting these international individuals and companies, because we know and we understand that it can be quite difficult to do business here in Thailand. That's why we want to make it easier. We want to be a one-stop service to make life easier, to make things easier. Even if we don't do everything ourselves in-house, but we have over 6,000 partners that we can connect people to talk with them or to point them into the right direction and with the right people. And today we also have our team setting up the booth outside. So if anyone has questions, want to just ask us anything, need any assistance or help, or just want to drop by to say hi, we're just outside. And we're looking forward to meet everyone and connect with everyone today. Thank you, and enjoy your break. Thank you.
Currently is the break, and the section will restart at 3:45 p.m. 3:45 p.m. Thank you so much.
already finished.
Oh, I felt the world crash down on me. I've lost my pulse and humanity. Like a tin man, I have no heart. Try to get it back, don't know where to start. Oh, I gave my all and supported you through. Was loyal but can't take this abuse. Not caring is the best change I have made. I'll be stronger than yesterday. You don't deserve this piece of me. I'm the part where you took advantage of me. Not caring is the best change I have made. I'll be stronger than yesterday. Oh, I gave my all and supported you through. Was loyal but can't take this abuse. How could I be so bad to say? And you don't deserve this piece of me.
presentation ก่อนเขาอยากเห็นตรงไหนนะต่อไป
Thank
not a remote microphone we can use. All of those things.
Hey everyone, we still have some difficulties, so it will take a few more minutes until we can start. Thanks.
I think another option is you put someone here. Open the slide. You can
So, hi everyone. We are running a bit late. We had some technical difficulties. Welcome to Hall 2 to Cloud DevOps and SRE. For those who don't know what it is, that is Site Reliability Engineering. My name is Valentin, and I will make sure that we have a smooth transition between the talks. So, our first speaker will be Dakshita. Dakshita is a senior software engineer at Zscaler, and she is building scalable backend systems and automation workflows with Spring Boot, Java, Postgres, etc. And this is actually her first conference talk. So please give a warm round of applause for Dakshita.
Hi everyone, sorry for the delay. There was some technical difficulties going on. So I'll just quickly give you my quick intro. I'm Dakshita. I'm working as a senior software engineer at Zscaler. And I'm working on backend services, but part of my work also including observability into my backend services as well. So I'll just move into Yeah. So a quick context of where I'm coming from. By trade, I'm a backend developer, and I also include observability into the backend services that I work on. I am a part of a team which works embedded into an SRE organization. So I have to take care of the observability of my platforms as well as the platforms that are owned by the other teams as well. Okay, so in this talk, I hope to inspire people, students who look into moving into the backend development course, student and early career developers who don't know about DevOps jargons, and if they've heard about SLOs, SLIs, alphabet soups like that, and quickly and quietly nodded their heads, not knowing what all these terms are all about, and also professionals who are looking for OSS alternatives for their services, particularly for observability platforms. So before moving into the solution that I've come across for the problem that we are facing, let's talk about why observability matters in these days. The modern systems are not just one service at the moment. There are multiple services. We are moving into microservices architecture, and it is very hard to reason why there's a problem occurring and at what point we are to look at when there's an alert triggered for any of the services that you own. And observability is something that you can fix with it. So let's say at 3 a.m. you get paged with an alert and it says that, you know what, and a user is facing a login issue. You don't have to look into the logs, the traditional way of logging into the service and then going through the logs and then finding out via regex what could be the problem here. You can just quickly trace your observability stack one by one by going into logs, metrics, traces. We'll be talking about those in the coming slides as well. So you can just look into those and then see and identify which service might be the breaking cause for the alert. Moving forward, so here are some of the statistics that I've pulled from PagerDuty's State of Digital Operations report, and these are real. We have 70% incidents which take more than 1 hour to resolve if there is no observability into picture of a backend service. There are 50% of alerts which are just actionable noise. There is nothing that you can do about it. And let's suppose you have an alert coming up, right? And you have deployed a service, and then there are 50 alerts coming in to picture. And then at one night, there's some outage that happened, and then that outage got missed into that noise. So what would you do? The aim here is to identify the root cause before your client comes to you. You should be knowing the answer to your problem. This is also known as alert fatigue, and it's caused by too many tools and untuned thresholds as well as unclear ownership. Now, let's talk about what observability is all about, right? So there are 3 major pillars of observability: logs, metrics, and traces, and an emerging 4th one, which is called profiling or continuous profiling. We also have RUM or real user monitoring, which is particularly for front-end services, where you can track each of the user's action into picture, right? So logs answer what happened at any point of time, okay? Metrics are how is your backend service performing at a picture. You can trace it via request rate, alert rates, error rates, okay? And then we move into traces. So traces are nothing but these are some of the measurements that you can pull into picture, and when you have a microservice architecture, via trace ID you can see and exactly pinpoint what the problem might be. Let's just deep dive into each of these 3 pillars now. The first one is logs. So logs is where most of the developers first try when there's an outage happening, okay? The first thing that you can do right now is to change your logs to a structured JSON format. Instead of putting into a simple straight text file that user is not able to log in, you can have a structured JSON where you can have parameters like level, message, service, user, request ID, timestamp, etc. And the most important of all of these parameters is request ID, because request ID will help you to trace exactly each of the user's requests end to end. Let's say one request travels from one microservice to another. So with using that request ID, you can exactly trace out how the request is flowing and point out where the request might be failing. Let's move into the second one. The second is metrics. So metrics there are two main methods that you can follow while contracting metrics into your backend services. The first one is a red method, which can help you trace your request rate, error rate, and duration or latency percentiles. And then we have use method, which is for infrastructure or resources. So it can help you track the utilization, saturation, and errors about your infrastructure. For example, CPU, memory, disk, etc. Some of the best practices for having metrics inside your backend services are time windows. Instead of mapping, let's say, alert if CPU percentage is more than 80%, write it down like this: alert if CPU percentage is more than 80% for 5 minutes. So that you can continuously track for those 5 minutes, that alert will be tracked, and then you will be on-called or you will be paged only when your threshold crosses your defined 80% target. The second one is multi-window alerting. So you can track multi-window alerting via fast burn alerts and slow burn alerts. So fast burn alerts is like, let's say, over 1 hour of time, you can track and write down if there are sudden outages. And for slow burn windows, you can track gradual degradation of your backend services. Let's move on to traces. Traces are the most interesting part of observability pillars. So with trace, if you see at this waterfall diagram, when you don't have traces into picture, you'll only know that your checkout endpoint or the API gateway endpoint that you have configured in your application takes 340 milliseconds. But with this waterfall diagram, you know exactly how and what service takes how much amount of time. So in this, authentication service takes 45 milliseconds, card service takes 120 milliseconds, etc. So when an error occurs in future, you'll exactly know what service could be breaking or what service could be the breaking point of your architecture. Now, always remember to have trace ID into this. So if you'll have a trace ID, you can track it with each of the microservice, and then you can have exactly this span waterfall created for all of your requests. Moving forward, so these are the alphabet soup that I was talking about in the beginning of my talk. SLI, SLO, SLA. We must have heard all of these terms before, but I'm sure we must have quietly nodded at least once without knowing what the meaning of each of these was. SLI is a service level indicator, so it is an actual measurement of your service performance. Then SLO is a service level objective which you set for your backend service. Okay, it is like an internal target. Let's take this example of video streaming API. SLI can be for latencies. For example, your API should have P95 latency of video start time. It should be less than 2 seconds. Then SLO is some internal target that you can keep for your metric. Like 99% of your video play starts should be within 2 seconds, and it should not take more than 2 seconds when it is measured monthly. SLA is a service level agreement, which is a signed contract between you and your clients. So if you pass that agreement and if you somehow fail to keep track of it, it can cause legal disruptions, like you can have credits, refunds, and your contract is basically breached. So it is like a violation with what you set with your clients. So in this example, SLA is 99.5% platform uptime should be there monthly within your service credits. So this is what you set with your clients, right? Let's go into error budgets. Now this is important for developers because let's say your product wants you to deliver features fast, but engineering says that no, we need to halt at some point of time and we need to ship features, not constantly, but keeping in mind that it can break our service as well. So this is what you can pinpoint to when your product demands something that is not in your contract, right? So error budget is nothing but 1 minus SLO is, so what you do is, let's say 99.9% is the SLO that you have set with your client. So that would mean you have an error budget of 0.1%, and you can use this error budget. Okay, this is for you to utilize. If let's say you're not utilizing this properly, you can ship features fast and you can deliver quickly. And let's say you're burning through this quickly. So if there is a recent deployment that happened and it caused a quick sudden outage, that would mean you have somehow burned this error budget. So now you need to slow down your releases. You need to stabilize your backend service until and unless the service is properly fixed, and then you'll be back onto track with this error budget. Okay, moving forward. Now this is the complete incident life cycle. This is not really laid out in front of developers that much, but I think it's very important to keep in mind how an alert process flows, because when you write your code, it is important for you to keep into mind that when an alert happens, and if you're paged, let's say at 3 a.m. in the morning, what you need to do and what exactly you need to perform at each of these steps. So the first one is when an alert fires. So let's say there is some threshold that has been crossed within your Prometheus configuration, and it has, you have been paged to it, right? So the second step would be that alert would be routed and notified to you via any of the tools or services that you use. For example, PagerDuty, or via Slack or Opsgenie. It could be anything that your company might be using. The third step is to triage. This is to find out if the impact is real or not, how many users are being affected, what can you do at this point of time to fix that, okay? The next one is to investigate. This is where observability pillars will come into picture. You need to look at logs, metrics, traces and everything and find out which service might be affecting so that you can mitigate that issue, which is the fifth step. So for mitigating, you don't have to fix your alert at this point of time. You just have to see what you can do. If you can roll back the latest deployment, if you can turn on and off a feature flag, or if you can restart your service to bring the users back onto the application. Now the sixth step and the last step would be to resolve and write down the RCA or the root cause analysis. You can update your post-mortem playbooks. You can write down a proper run book so that any alert that happens, a similar alert if it happens in future, can be taken care of in the right manner. Now, automation can come into picture. You can auto-silence your alerts during maintenance windows so that your team is not paged for things that they know that they're already doing. The second one is to auto-group related alerts so that when there is a service outage, you are not pinged 30 alerts at one point of time. You are only pinged one alert and you can take care of your service. The third one is to link the runbook in your alerts so that any on-call engineer can take a look at this runbook even before opening what the alert is all about. The fourth one is to auto-escalate if an alert is not taken care of within the defined time frame windows. You can auto-escalate it by your escalation policies, whatever you configure or whatever is configured for your team. Now, I would just like to quickly go over the open source toolkit that you can use to build your stack for free. The first one is Prometheus. It is used for scraping the metrics and storing them in time series format. It has a very powerful query language called PromQL, which it uses for tracking and storing the time series metrics. Then you can use Grafana dashboards. It again is a very helpful tool to visualize your metrics, logs, and traces. And there are hundreds of community dashboards available which you can pull off even today if you go back after this conference. The third one is again OpenTelemetry. This can be imported. As a developer, this is the most important thing that you can have in your backend front-end codes. You can import these OpenTelemetry SDKs which are CNCF certified. And you can auto-instrument your code so that your metrics and traces and logs move and ship to the observability stack that your team has chosen to. Then we have logs, Loki for logs, Tempo, Grafana Tempo for traces, and then Alert Manager for routing your alerts. These are some of the key points with which you can reduce your alert fatigue. You can have time tolerance, as I mentioned. You can silence your alerts during maintenance windows. You can route intelligently. This is the most important and my most favorite one. You can route the alerts to the only on-call, only engineer that knows what to do with that alert, and not route that alert to hundreds of engineers that you have in your team. Now, these are some of the things that you can do for getting started with observability for your backend services or your code. You can have basic monitoring setup. You can define service levels, and you can just follow these steps to have observability into picture. I would just like to end my talk here. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ikshita, for this valuable insight into site reliability engineering. Our next speaker will be Joe. Joe is a principal software engineer at Grafana, and he does DevOps tools like service level objectives and workflows, so probably something similar. And he has 10 years experience in this whole observability industry. So he will show us some new data transformation features in Grafana 12, and I hope we don't have any technical difficulties here.
I think we're okay.
We're okay. Wait with the applause until it works. Yeah, technique. I mean, we hate it. Like 4 years.
Why did I join this field?
So many years pandemic, and still no one can do presenting and techniques and computers.
Are we doing mirroring?
And it's mirroring.
Okay, it was.
It works.
It is.
We don't see anything.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's your time.
Why won't we? I'm so sorry. We will just go back to mirroring. Doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna get green.
Yes. It did work before, right? Can you check it?
Okay, everyone.
So, there it is now.
Okay.
Please, a warm round of applause for Joe.
Apologies for the chaos. Technical chaos. Hi, everyone. My name's Joe. I work at Grafana Labs as a software engineer. Thanks, Dikshita, for the nice mention of our tool and product. So Grafana is an open source observability tool. It's the best dashboarding tool in the world, in my opinion. It lets you connect data from dozens of data sources, wherever that data might live, SQL databases, Prometheus, Amazon CloudWatch, logs databases, GitHub, all kinds of stuff. It also lets you do alerting from that data. It will run queries for you in the background, send you emails, send you text messages, send you Slack messages when things go bad. So, you've got all of this data. You want to visualize it and take a look at it. Grafana has two different ways for you to transform data from those databases, which is not confusing for most users at all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between those two before we get into a new kind of expression that we have in Grafana. Grafana has server-side expressions, which are run by the backend. You can use them in alerting. One of the limitations of it is it's really numeric and mathematical. You can do things like, is it null? You can divide numbers by each other. But you can't really manipulate things like string fields from a JSON response with these kind of backend expressions. Whereas transformations are something that are part of dashboards and have really powerful capabilities for manipulating data. If you want to take a huge GitHub API response and turn it into the list of issues I've seen in the last week, reformat the titles, who's the assignee, put it in a different table shape, that's what transformations are really good at. But they can only be used in visualizations. They can't be used in things like alerting. So you can't take all my GitHub issues, turn it into a summary report, alert my manager if there's more than 100 open issues, yada, yada, yada. You can't do these kind of things with a transformation, just with an expression. I want to talk a little bit more detail about transformations. We'll leave expressions behind for now. They've got a lot of things you might expect, like joining two tables together on a column field, grouping things with maybe a sum operation or a min or a max, filtering, calculating fields, doing things like reduce. You build up a pipeline of transformations. Those transformations are applied in order to data you have. So I'm going to walk through an example here. I chose a bad green, apologies, of taking a query of customer billing data from two different databases. This is more common than you might think in large organizations. You don't end up with all the money information in the same database. Taking a query, extracting some fields, joining them together to eventually end up with revenue by customer by quarter kind of visualization, right? What we have in this field is I billed customer one $1,000 in Q1, or $1,000 in December, January, February. I need to say, oh, that's Q1, right? You just have line items in here, and we want to turn it into this nice summary thing. You probably know how to do that in Excel. You probably don't want your CFO editing the Excel sheet directly, so giving him a visualization like this is quite valuable. All Grafana queries create these sort of data frame shapes. It's a table. It's a set of tables that come back from anything, and you get, what looks like a SQL table to manipulate. So in the query we just talked about, I need to try with gamma on my presentation before. This was all very subtle. You can see, we get two sort of square shapes out. We reduce these by extracting fields, turning a green square into a green rectangle, a blue square into a blue rectangle, joining them into a purple rectangle, and then summing by this group by field to get the final evaluation. That's nice. We can do all this with Grafana transformations, but I had to write 4 transformations to do a pretty simple thing that you can probably figure out how to do in a single SQL query, right? If all of these were in one database or 2 tables in the same database, I would write something that looks like this. This is a language all computer science students tend to learn. We've had it in our pocket since the 1980s. If everything's in the same table, it's really great. And you know what else? LLMs are really good at writing them even if you don't know the language. There's a lot of advantages to SQL. So this is that same transformation rendered as SQL. 2 different tables, A and B. So we take the customer ID, the quarter, we sum the revenue from one table, the charges from another table, because for some reason our 2 engineers named the columns differently and we don't want to migrate everything, on a join. And that's what that same four-stage pipeline does, right? Here we have a single expression. A computer can compile that down into a nice actual processing of the data. So this is easier for a lot of people to work with. If your data's in the same database, you just do it this way. But if you're grabbing data from multiple places and you need to combine it, that's something you weren't able to do in Grafana dashboards before. But in Grafana 12, which came out a little bit less than a year ago, we first added SQL expressions to Grafana. So now you can write SQL on results from almost any data source query across different data sources, transform them into the shape that you need them. So they can work with strings in the way that I said expressions previously couldn't, right? It was just numeric computation. These can do more complicated manipulations of your data, and they're server-side expressions. I mentioned the difference between expressions and transformations. These are server-side expressions, which also means you can write a complicated SQL query across multiple data sources and use it as an alerting rule. So if you have, these, it's admittedly a little bit exotic, but if you have complicated data processing needs, this is also something you can use in alerting, which was previously not really possible for a lot of things. We have a really nice editor for it. We have this is all OSS, by the way. We have nice autocomplete on both the syntax of SQL and the data that is in the queries you're doing. So if you write your data queries first, we'll load a sample of the data, you'll see what the columns are, and the autocomplete can even help you with the columns, the shape of your data, the types of the data that are in there. And like I said, we've got a big variety of data sources that support this, kind of JSON endpoint type things like GitHub. a lot of metrics databases, which end up usually producing several columns of numeric data based on like the labels that are attached to the data that comes back from the query, SQL databases, as you might imagine, and distributed tracing and logging databases too. As long as it can be formatted into that sort of data frame shape, we can write SQL queries on what eventually comes out of that. So I want to show you guys a couple demos of that in an environment we have on Grafana called play.grafana.com. If you ever want to play around with stuff in Grafana, you don't know how it works, you don't want to run your own instance, head over to play.grafana.com where we've got a bunch of different dashboards and other feature things. This is our SQL expression showcase. We're going to be, as we walk through, we're going to be looking at a sort of base query from a PromQL dashboard that is very simple. It's just the CPU seconds of a process over the last 5 minutes. A very simple rate query. We're going to start with that and kind of reshape it through a variety of examples. So here's the first one, which is selecting over that time window just the top 10 samples. This is something that Prometheus itself has a hard time doing in a PromQL query, but is basically trivial in an SQL query on that data, which is we just order by the value and take the top 10, right? You could present this as a visualization like this, which is very messy. You could present it as a table with timestamps, but just what was the peak memory usage of my process over the last 3 days? Give me the top 10 values for that. Surprisingly hard for a lot of metrics databases to do, but once you load the data, trivial to do with a table of data. I want to show next, also doing the same sort of thing of doing an average, a max, and a min in a single query from a bunch of stuff. It's a very simple SQL query. The functions are there in the language. This is another thing where you, if you were going to write PromQL for this, you'd write 3 queries and then reformat them to put them together in the page. This is just select average, select max, select min from the same table over the same time window. It makes a lot of visualization and data transformation stuff just that much simpler. Here's a really complicated one. This is normalizing the data across the time period from 0% to 100%, right? These values are somewhere between 1 and 4 in the previous query, the base that we looked at. This is normalizing them from 0 to 1, showing it as a percentage. This is impossible to do in PromQL without writing multiple things and multiple transformations. The statement here looks a little complicated, but it's not as tricky as you think. We're taking the value minus the minimum value divided by the maximum minus the minimum. Because of how tricky it is to do that sort of thing in PromQL, this is another thing that most people don't never look at, but is trivial to do with SQL. And yeah, one last one, a ratio of queries from 2 different databases. We're going to take the process CPU seconds across our whole data set and the process CPU seconds for one thing. In this case, the Alloy receiver, which is an open telemetry collector distribution, and compute how much of that CPU is being used by the Alloy receiver as opposed to the rest of the system. Point being, these are from 2 different data sources, right? They're not from a single data source, so they're not sitting next to each other. You can't write that in PromQL. But here you can just say, select the time, divide the 2 values, ta-da. It's a super useful, now you've seen my email. It's a super useful paradigm for doing this kind of stuff in Grafana. I've enjoyed using it internally. I'm excited that it's in public preview. Yeah, so if you're using Grafana internally, there's a feature flag you can fly. If you're using it in Grafana Cloud, it's already turned on for you. Give it a shot. So, come see us outside the booth in a little bit. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you, Joe, for this insight into the free features of the open source feature of Grafana, which is really lovely to see that that still exists. So our next talking guest will be Neil. Neil, are you around? Well, Neil is a developer advocate at StackGen and a DevOps engineer. He's into building open source focused communities back in his country, and he's an organizer of a Google Cloud meeting, CNCF local group, and also a HashiCorp user group. which is really cool to see. And Neil will talk about integrating AI with SRE. Is that correct?
Thank you so much.
Please give a round of applause, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. How are you? No energy. Yeah, I saw some energy. So today we will see like how you can integrate AI and in SRE processes, because a lot of SRE are in a lot of trouble, but we will see like how AI can integrate there. So hi, this is Neil here. Short intro for me. I'm a DevOps advocate, developer advocate at StackGN, and I organize a lot of meetups in my local area. This is Gandhinagar. And I have given sessions in like a lot of conferences, KubeCon, PlatformCon, Linux Fest, and a lot of conferences, GopherCon, LaraCon recently. So yeah, moving on. This is the biggest problem here. So being a SRE, we got a lot of alerts, because all the alerts are not required. There are a lot of noise. So 80% of the alerts are noise. Next is stale runbooks. So what are runbooks? Anyone know what is runbook? So runbooks are created by a lot of SRE engineer to troubleshoot the similar kind of case. When something happens, we do a root cause analysis. We create a whole postmortem of that process. We create a whole runbook. So that runbook is stale because the version is changed now. We are changing a lot of version regularly. So if something has failed, it will be changed then. And next is logs overloaded. So we have traces, matrices, logs of application, infra, a lot of things. But that identifying what is important for us is very, very hard. So how LLM fits into SRE operations? So we have Stack, we have Prometheus alerts, we have Loki logs, Hotel, if you know OpenTelemetry, it is, you know Kubernetes. Kubernetes is the first project, a lot of contributes there. And OpenTelemetry is the second most contributed project in the CNC of landscape. And if you talk about observability, SRE, DevOps, OpenTelemetry is the biggest project. You can see and contribute in all that. And LLM is not here to replace DevOps. LLM is just here to help you to understand better of your system insights, application insights. So when we integrate LLMs, we have RAG, which can see the incident history. Maybe you can consider a scenario where Black Friday happens. Black Friday happens every yearly. So on Black Friday, you don't want your application gets down. Do you understand the incident? You will scale the application in that sense. That's just a small example. Next is we can integrate with LangChain, Llama Index, if you know. And I will also see how the dashboards look, because we want to gain more insight from all the LLMs. From that, we can have ChatOps bots. So ChatOps bots give me the insight from infrastructure, which VM is working fine or which is not working fine. Just like prompting. We can prompt and we can get answers. Apart from that, the runbooks can be dynamic, because when we change the version, it will be also reflected in the RAG and it will be directly dynamically updated there. Next, we have auto diagnosis, root cause analysis, it will be automated there. So dynamic runbooks. So previously, if we are not using LLMs, then we are not maintaining the versions of runbooks, because we don't update the documents frequently. So when we do this, we use integrate LLM, we integrate RAG, then it is pretty easy to update the runbook automatically. You don't need to find the versions, you don't need to upgrade the documentation of runbooks. And nothing in hard-coded command, everything is updated. So giving a small context over here of the runbooks. You can also query incident history. So if you don't know like how that incident was curated or solved previously, you can query over here and you can definitely easily get that after the LLM power. Next comes auto diagnosis. So you know RCA, you know root cause analysis. When something happens, what we do is root cause analysis of any product. So step one is it will fire an alert. The Prometheus trigger will be cached over there, and it will fetch the context from the vector search because we already have our database for RAG. The LLM analyzes, it will correlate the logs matrices. So correlation means like you have logs, matrix traces in different format. You have front-end logs, back-end logs. It will be correlated. It should be in sync. Then only it can happen now. Next comes the diagnosis of that plus the root causes. So if you know a lot of big troubleshooting errors, it will be helpful for that. And with the confidence score, it will show you the solution for that. So now if you use any observability tool, there are a lot of AI ops thing. If you talk about AI ops is a thing where in observability platform, it has all your logs, traces, matrices. If you can integrate with your GitHub or any code, then what will happen is, any error occurs, it already gives you a solution. Within one click, it will generate a PR. And the solution is fixed. So that is the AI ops trending nowadays. If you want to search, you can search that more. But here comes the disclaimer. So safety is first. If we integrate AI, LLM, that's fine. But there should be some guardrails on top of that, because we don't want that it can misinterpret the application because the application can go down. So for safety, we can integrate a lot of policies. We can also create proper structure for JSON parsing, everything we can do that. And always, we can use for like, let's say, if we want to auto deploy that, we can use Argo CD, something like that. That way we can roll back that. And there should be some manual check whenever we are applying a fix from AI. Because we can't directly rely, we will get insights from that, but we can directly apply for that. Next is output validation, and we can see each and every response of AI and also how much token it is utilizing, because when we use AI, a lot of tokens are used, a lot of money is used. So we want to understand like how many tokens are used in this kind of format. So if you want to understand more on AI governance, here is a blog post. If you want to see, you can scan this code and you can see a lot of things, how AI governance and agents happens. I'll wait for a minute, people are scanning, sorry. Oh, is that later? Oh, yeah, my bad, like I placed the wrong place then. Because nowadays we are using AI, but we need to understand how the governance works on by top of that. There is a cool blog post by our field CTO, VP of field CTO and customer success. He talks with a lot of customers in finance and in big companies. So he had created a good post on that. Moving ahead, so talking about tooling. So for inferencing, we can use virtual LLMs, Olama, anything. And for orchestration, we can use LangChain. Have you heard about LangChain? Anyone? Oh, nice. Couple of people. So LangChain, we can use Llama Index, we can use Argo CD plus GitOps. So if you are familiar with GitOps or something like that, Argo CD, Flux CD are used by a lot of people to automate the pipeline of deployment. And the main thing with this is, if something fails, then you can automatically revert back, roll back that. It is pretty easy there. So see, this is a LangFuse. So if you understand observability, then there is a term called trace. So trace, I can understand in a normal simple languages. So whenever user comes on your platform, let's say e-commerce platform, user comes on the home page, search for a product, went to purchase a product, had done the checkout. So this is called a whole user journey. So whenever user comes on your platform, a trace ID is generated. And for the whole user journey, there is a span IDs associated with that. So this is a trace of a request. How to update input in LangGraph traces. So this is a question, input, output. request. So when you prompt on any AI platform, this is what happens on the back end. So LangFuse is also a good tool you can explore, and also have dashboards like how many tokens are consumed, how many costs it has happened. Because consider a scenario where you have application, you have multiple LLM models recurring on that, and it is like a black box. You don't know what is happening inside that. You're just writing a request. A lot of requests are there parallelly. You want to understand like which is taking more time, which is taking more money. Everything you want to understand. So tools like this is open source. Tools like this will help you out. Next comes my favorite is OpenLit. See the dashboards. So this is dashboard like cost by application, cost by environment, total cost like the whole cost for all the requests of the application, even generation by provider, like which provider it was, OpenAI, Gemini, anything and around that, and also every duration. Because if you want to scale the application, the duration matters a lot. Even milliseconds matters a lot. I was working previously in a company where we need to load 10 million data in 1 second. That's a huge number. So similarly, for observability or anything, if you want to scale, you need to understand the insights of that. So yeah, what are the metrics actually that matter? Is toil. If you know toil, so being in SRE, being in DevOps, being in infra, we want to reduce the toil. What is toil? Like we need to automate a lot of tasks. If something happens, something goes down, we need to remove the downtime eventually, because nowadays if you have seen like lot of downtimes are there. That happens, and it impacts a lot of business cases. It happens and also reduces a lot of business value. Next is MTTR. So MTTR is mean time to resolve. So something has failed, what is the mean time to resolve that? So if you have used LLMs, nowadays it is getting better. The mean time to resolve is going better. Next is alert fatigue drop. So alerts, you receive a lot of alerts, but all the alerts are not necessary. There is a lot of noise. Which alerts are important? Nowadays we are able to figure out that. We have priorities of alerts now. P1, P2 priorities of alerts now. Next is on-call satisfaction. Being a SRE engineer, we don't want that. We need to stay at 24/7. Using this kind of tool, we can have our understanding and we can leverage that. And the drop in on-call is a lot of things. It saves a life for a lot of SRE engineers. Call to action. So consider set the Prometheus alert proper. Go into LangChain, post to Slack with context. So if you jumble like Prometheus plus LangChain, and whatever source you can pick, maybe you want to alert on your Slack, on your Gmail, or anywhere, you can integrate that easily with LangChain. Next is load your Git runbooks. So Git runbooks are basically what I told previously is SRE runbooks, which helps you to do RCAs faster. Next is set up RAG, RAG. It will have 6 months of history, incident history. It can train that model on that. And it will help you to understand the things faster. I'm going a little fast, but due to time, and if you have more questions, we can discuss later. So key takeaways, here are like few key takeaways. LLMs, tirelessly first responder, but there is always a human intervention after that. RAG makes them context aware because it has a more context of that. It has your history, everything of that. ChatOps is with less prompting, you can have understanding of your insights, of your application easily. Guardrails, we want that it should be AI safety first. AI evaluation should be there. Next is measure the toil reduction weekly. Toil reduction is very important for a company business part of view. If you want to explore like a DevOps agent, Copilot, you can scan and you can write the ChatOps bot. I'm moving fast. If you want to connect with me for any queries, you can connect directly. I'll be happy to answer your any questions over there. What happened? Okay, maybe I can, yeah. Just a minute. Okay, no worries. So I also run a newsletter if you want to subscribe. There are almost 15K subscribers. So I share a lot of knowledge on DevOps and AI. If you want to learn more, you can subscribe. Yeah, within 1 minute we can. Yeah. I have linked in newsletter. Yeah. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. That was very insightful. I learned a bit about what I could do to convince my supervisor to have AI in site reliability. Thank you. Our next guest will be Richard. He will do a demo. So I hope he's around in the room somewhere. Ah, she's behind me. Great. You need the other cable. You wanted to have this one, right? So we have to build up a bit. You wanted to have this one, I think.
Well, if this one works, it's fine.
Okay. So we have to build up a bit because Richard will actually give a demo. Yeah, a bit about again Grafana, I think, and like how to do interactive stuff in Grafana. Did I get that right from the description? Interactive learning. Oh, cool. Okay. A bit about Richie. He's director of community at Grafana. He's also a Prometheus team member and funded Open Metrics, which is quite cool. And he's also a member of Open Telemetry, so he's all in this observability thing, which is really cool. He also organizes quite some conferences for quite some time. So I think like for 20 years or something, you're doing that. There are some very prominent names like PromCon, FOSDEM, DANOC, DebConf, and the Chaos Communication Congress, which is really cool. And we have technical difficulties again, which seems to be always the case when people use their own laptop. Well, we are good in time. It should be okay. We should really start doing site reliability engineering for this hall, and file an incident report later, I think. This is source. No, we don't have a video feed. That's a problem. No, we don't.
Joe, do you have, are you able to log in to learn some HANA Ops.NET?
I mean, we have some problems with the technique here. Like, obviously, we have some infrastructure problems. Maybe you can just describe what you would see, and then.
Yes, but I'll use 5 minutes of my time for technical part.
That's okay. Yeah. So, yeah, you need a microphone, I think. So
that would probably help. So
we are
welcome
ready?
everyone. I hope we
Stage
are.
is yours.
Thank you.
A round of applause, maybe, please.
I will use some of my time to live try and figure out how to get back into dev mode and also give you a demo of the editor in a bit. So this is, no, actually let me mentally restart. For years and years and years, I have wanted something really nice for enablement for learning within Grafana. I very strongly believe, like, who here likes reading documentation? Okay, there's usually 1 or 2 people in the room, which is not a lot. Like the vast majority of people do not enjoy reading documentation. Yes, you need to do this often and it's fine, and if it's well written, that is good, but it's not actually very pleasant to the vast majority of people. There's also other formats, like for example, slide decks, like YouTube or other videos. Like there's a lot of learning formats which are distinct from the thing you're learning within. So what if we had something where you could actually learn within the product? And this is something which I've been trying to get for years now, and since May last year, we actually started working on it. And this is something where you can actually, like, it tells you like whatever, and it tells me where to go, and I can just, I hope the internet works, it's kind of spotty, yes. So it just goes to the location for me. And I can tell it, like, how can I enable dev mode? And I don't know if you can see it here, you can see it here. It actually showed me where I need to click the button. So I click the button, and automatically it sees, okay, this has been, this step has been fulfilled. It reloads hopefully correctly to get me into the next step, and then again I can tell it to show me, or I can just tell it to do it for me, and it does the step for me. So the point here is I see and I learn directly within Grafana about Grafana. It's not a case of me needing to go to a different tab or to refer to some video or whatever. I can stay within the thing. So this is really cool and nice. What if I could edit this myself? And this is actually also quite easy. So I'm just going to jump in here for a second, and then we can go back to the other thing. So let's say I just want to have one single interaction. I just say pick element, and I click on this one. It doesn't really matter. I give it a name. Let's call it test. Test is a good name. Well, actually, let's give it whatever. Let's call it test. It doesn't matter. And I add this block. And then I have this in my sequence of commands, and I can say whatever, like the next block is when I am in the drill down. I think I selected drill down earlier. So again, I can say interactive, and I can pick an element, and I go to alerts and IRM, whatever. Again, it doesn't really matter. If I realize I can also like put tags onto stuff to give more detailed information about what the learning is actually doing. If I realize I need to rearrange steps, I can just grab them and rearrange the steps within this guide. I can have complex multi-steps where you have like 3 or 5 different clicks through a thing, and you just like navigate complex workflows. And all of this works directly within Grafana. So let's get back to, I don't use Mac, so let's see if this works. Yeah, let's take this one. So again, like here's a lot of text, like whatever. If I was doing this for realsies, I would be reading all of this. But this is actually good, because here the requirements for this guide are not met. And I didn't script this, so let's just try and see if I can fix it. Yes, I clicked the thing, like it detected the state was wrong for me to actually follow the guide, but it has the context of where in the navigation within Grafana it needs to be. So I just clicked fixed it, and it fixed it for me. And now I'm back in a known good state, and I can again like show what I need to do, or I can just say, okay, I want to have this done. And here it did say complete the previous step, so I just click retry, and now it actually succeeds. The underlying point here is, this was a requirement from my side, like from day one, to have a super robust state system underlying the whole thing. So we always fall back to the last known good state, and then we move from there. So it is a very, very resilient system, because obviously there's going to be failures. Obviously someone just clicks around a little bit and then they return, whatever. It is a very hairy and complex problem to teach people. So this is built with a lot of redundancy and a lot of safeguards in mind to really ascertain that yes, you are actually in the thing. So, I mean, I can just continue showing you what to do, but this is the boring part. So what can we do with all of this? Obviously, we can teach within the product. That is nice. We have plans beyond this. So we do actually intend to build this into a relearning platform. So you will have courses where you can say, okay, I want to learn about logging, and then you have 5 different modules in this course, and you go through the thing, and upon completion, you get your badge and everything. We also have end-to-end testing. So yes, this is nice, but what this also does, it knows where it is within the UI. Of course, we do DOM matching in the background. So what we can now do is we can actually end-to-end test the UI through a scripting language which we have built ourselves for writing these guides. But what this means is a developer makes a change. Or actually, let me ask, who here uses Grafana? Okay, that is almost everyone, nice. Who here likes how often we change the UI? Okay, that's one person. It is very, very fast, and this is deliberate about Grafana. We have a super high innovation speed, but one of the problems is oftentimes people get confused because a thing which worked half a year ago might be in a different place now. The thing about this is now when something changes and we run those as end-to-end tests in the background, we can actually determine that yes, something has broken, and then it can be fixed. Being fixed can either mean the developer goes back and they change the UI back to what it was before, or they adapt the guide to reflect the changes which they made in the code base. I don't care which way. I truly, honestly don't care which way they do it. But what I do care about is that afterwards, the state of all of those guides is consistent with the UI again. And what this means is if they just revert the change because they weren't aware they're changing the UI, great. Now I caught an error which otherwise would have impacted users. But if they change it and they actually want to have the change, also great. Because now I can actually raise an issue with the docs people and tell them, okay, you might need to look at this part of the documentation so you can update the documentation because there's something which changed in the actual product. And I can even go as far as taking screenshots and potentially at some point maybe a video of whatever the thing is. So I can actually also turn this into different learning. What we are also already experimenting with is serializing this type of thing back into text. So at some point you might even be able to write documentation from known good interactions with the UI directly within the product. So this would obviously make it a lot easier to write consistent documentation and also really proven documentation because you know for a fact that this actually works within the thing. We have more features. We have one thing. Also, by the way, this is the first recorded demo of the whole feature. Another thing which we are not super, it's not super public, but also it's not super secret because all of this is open source. You can just literally go on GitHub and look it up if you want to. We will have something where we actually teach you how to configure machines. Who here knows what killer coda is? Or kata coda before this? Okay, that's 2 people. So what this is, or what both of those tools are, or were in one case, you get a web browser, you get a shell onto a Linux machine, and then you can do certain things within the shell, and you can, I don't know, you learn whatever, learn how to set up MySQL, doesn't matter. But you basically have a web browser, and within the web browser, you follow a script, and then you configure the thing, and it hooks into the machine and can tell you, yes, it actually works, it runs on, the MySQL server is running, it's configured with the right credentials, whatever. We're building this into Grafana, which we call Grafana Coda, or Grafa Coda for now, for probably obvious reasons, where you will actually be able, and we already have something which works, like if you go on GitHub, you can just use the branch and you can just do it. We can actually start a machine for you, and then you can, for example, configure Alloy, and we can actually tell you, okay, now data is coming into your instance, and you can actually visualize it, and now you can hop back into Grafana itself, and you can create your dashboards, you can create your alerts. So this really gives you a holistic view into the whole thing. There's obvious add-ons, like at that point you could also consider like SSHing into a production machine and fixing stuff, similar to what we do with code and profiles and tracing. So the intention behind all of this is to really get a much tighter integration between the learning and between the on-machine doing from your Grafana instance. I deliberately speed ran a little bit, so we do have time for questions if anyone has questions. Otherwise, I can also just continue the demo or let you go early. Does anyone have questions?
If I'm hosting my own instance, can I use this to write like courses for my devs to look at stuff?
Very good question. I completely forgot about that. So all of what you saw is open source. We will have the enterprise features will be explained through enterprise license guides and the cloud stuff through cloud guides. Of course, it wouldn't make sense to give you an open source guide for something which is cloud only, blah, 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 obvious. I'm a Debian developer. The packaging system of this is based on the Debian thing, so we will have different repositories. And you will be able to just add your own repositories. So we, like with my commercial Grafana hat on, we already have quite some large customers who have an intention of writing their own internal guides or adopting their guides. There's partners of Grafana Labs who are already intending to build guides themselves and then sell them as an add-on product. Oh, we also will have a workshop mode where you basically have one person sitting in front and they can see where the 20 different people are in the workshop, so they can actually get an overview of who needs extra help and everything, which will also obviously tie into this whole enable third parties to hold courses and to sell courses if they so choose, free of charge. Like we don't earn any of this or anything, it doesn't matter. It's about the enablement part. Also, obviously, you can run webinars and everything through it. But yes, you can write your own guides. You can sell them, you can have your own certification internally, you can have your own security, whatever, for yourself and not have to share it with anyone. Other questions? Then what you should have asked is how to create this. So I showed you the block editor. The other thing which we can already do, in particular with Claude, you can actually just take certain code bases and such, and we literally just toss an LLM onto the problem and it can write guides for you. You can also do all of this by hand if you want to, but you can actually LLM generate a lot of this and the results are pretty decent. Like they're not always perfect, but they are pretty decent, and in the vast majority of cases it takes a little bit of work and then they are ready to ship. Some people just prefer doing it in the UI. Some people prefer doing it on the documentation or on the code. Honestly, I think in the future, people will probably just auto-generate a lot of this and then just verify. When they make code changes, just also generate the changes to the guide and then as a follow-on step, see that everything works. Any last questions? That mic doesn't work? 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation and your insight to this really cool, what was it called? Graphocoder? Like
just Grafana Interactive Learning is the public name.
Grafana Interactive Learning, and that's very easy to memorize. But thank you very much, and we will now have to clean up this room a bit. So this was the last talk for Hall 2 for today. Have a nice time and see you all later or tomorrow. Thank you.